time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Great to have you with us on this Monday edition of the show. It's a natty Monday. We got a jam-packed program, so I'm not going to waste any time. Patrick McEnroe will join us from Melbourne for the Australian Open, previewing Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic. We will be joined by Bill Bender coming up in 20 minutes. Get his thoughts on the national championship game in Atlanta. He is there. Matt Verderame, SI's fantastic NFL writer, insider, he will join us on the show to help us preview a game we'll be discussing coming up in just a couple of moments here with Sam Yarnell, who hangs out with us each and every day on the show. Show off your shirt. Come on, let's see it. Come on. There it is. There it is. I was wondering what kind of Sam Yarnell I was going to get today, and as soon as I saw your camera pop on, I said, I know what kind of Sam Yarnell we're getting today. And that's where we begin with the Ravens and Bills, and boy, it turned out to be the thriller that we thought it would be. The Ravens rally late. Mark Andrews can't hang on to a touchdown in the corner of the end zone near the pylon, and Buffalo hangs on to beat the Ravens 27-25. And look, I mean, this was as good a game as we all thought it would be, Sam.
Yeah, this was a domination from the Buffalo Bills, Jason Page. This was the Buffalo Bills flexing their muscles and showing you that they can win games even when their MVP, Josh Allen, isn't performing quite frankly well, which was a huge question after, if you'll remember that earlier in the season, Texans lost because Josh Allen didn't play well and they lost the game. This was the polar opposite of that. This was a huge step up from, like Josh Allen said after the game, that Buffalo Bills defense, man. How about them absolutely shutting down the most dynamic rushing attack in the National Football League, no questions asked to me, and forcing Lamar Jackson, who had been amazing this season, especially with regard to turnovers, to regress to his former playoff self. I mean, truly an outstanding performance from a defense that I would argue is the best in the National Football League remaining right now.
It does deserve to be mentioned that Lamar Jackson in these spots yet again, fell into this situation where he's making plays that he uncharacteristically does not make. And you could see his frustration after the game talking about, I'm tired of getting to the doorstep. I'm tired of being right there and us not, being able to get across the finish line. But even with all that said, even with all those turnovers, they still had an opportunity in that last moment of this game to tie the Buffalo Bills, Sam. So when you say domination, how do you account for the fact that even with that domination, they still almost wound up in overtime with this team?
Yeah, 100. I think that's actually a really important point that you make, that this whole Mark Andrews thing that everyone apparently in the Ravens Twitterverse has turned on a former all-pro tight end, a top-tier tight end in the National Football League who suffered, by the way, countless personal setbacks throughout this season. But no, the Ravens fan base, they turned on him like a dime because he dropped a pass that would have tied the game that, oh, by the way, from your golden boy quarterback was a horrible throw. The second horrible throw Lamar made on that exact play yesterday. You'll remember the Derrick Henry drop in the second quarter. This is one of the wilder things to me, this whole narrative that's developed around Mark Andrews and how all of this is just somehow his fault. But I will say this to your point, right? The 2-point conversion would have tied the game. It wouldn't have won them the game. And quite frankly, I always trust Josh Allen if there's more than 30 seconds left to get the Bills inside field goal range.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what this matchup with the Chiefs looks like next week. We'll talk about that with Matt Verderame coming up a little later on. First, a word from our friends at Edge Boost. Are you making extra money daily from your sports betting? I'm always about finding ways to take sports betting to the next level, and that's why I love Edge Boost, the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit. With the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. Free money in your back pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit and will never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden hidden fees or minimum required balances. Stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today. That's edgeboost.bet, or just click that QR code right there below and go and check it out. I already got myself one of the cards. It's fast, it's easy. I was able to sign up in less than like 2.5 minutes and get my card. Go and get yours now. edgeboost.bet. And again, just click the QR code below. Sam, Rams and Eagles. We got 2.5 minutes to discuss what transpired here. Now, look, I mean, the Rams had their opportunity late. This was, despite the big catch he made on that final drive for the Rams in that game, Puka Nacua did not have a good day. And I mean, Saquon Barkley did what Saquon Barkley has done all year. The big break-off run has been sort of the calling card of Saquon Barkley this year. I think he had more 50 or 60-yard runs than anybody in the history of the league. And yesterday, another example of that with what he was able to do. Eagles are headed to the NFC Championship game where they'll take on the Commanders. We'll get to them coming up in the next segment, but a thought on what the Eagles were able to do.
Listen, I think just as any ball knower out there will see, like, this game was great for the Philadelphia Eagles. And like you said, like, their defense down the stretch did make a couple of really big plays. That said, this is an Eagles team that just isn't sustainable, and I don't trust them to win 2 more games in a row.
We keep saying that, but they keep winning these games. It's like Kansas City.
You're right, but I think that my point here is this, and it's something you said. They're relying way too much on explosives, right? Famously in football, explosive, something you goal towards, something you come by, not something you can rely upon, right? Anyone in football will tell you that. They're great to come across, but you can't rely on them or expect them. The Eagles have very clearly, in my mind, based on some of their play calling in that game, gotten to a point where they're relying on explosive plays. That's just unacceptable, and that's not going to win you a Super Bowl.
Matt Stafford, after the game, said he didn't know what his future held. Remains to be seen if he'll come back and play. Is it a ploy to get more money? I don't know. He certainly took some lumps in this game and in this postseason. We'll see if he decides to come back for another run at it. Still, hats off to the Rams. I mean, started out 1-4, and they were on a drive to potentially go to the NFC title game. Dealt with a bunch of injuries earlier in the year. But it's the Eagles headed to the NFC title game where they'll meet the Commanders. We'll get to the Saturday games coming up in just a couple of moments. Matt Verderame later on in the show. Don't you go anywhere. Coming up in 10 minutes, our friend Matt Verderame, SI, Sports Illustrated, SI.com, NFL Insider. Also does a little thing on Patreon called the Matt Verderame Show. Talks a lot about the Chiefs. Get his thoughts. On Kansas City, moving on to the AFC title game where they'll take on the Buffalo Bills. So we'll do a little less on the Chiefs game in this segment than we typically would, because we're going to talk with him about them coming up in the next segment. Sam Yarnell returns as we continue the conversation recapping divisional playoff weekend, Sam. And look, I mean, Commanders-Lions, hats off to our friend who comes on this show, Robert Littal, because I had him on Friday. And when I had him on, I said, where do you think there's the best chance for an upset? First words out of his mouth were the Commanders. He actually loved the Commanders in this spot. So hats off to him. He texted me as soon as the game was ending saying, send me the clip of me saying that. So I did that. Let him take his victory lap. Sam, look, I said on Friday's show that the Commanders could play their A game and still lose. Because I thought even if the Lions played a B or a B minus game, they would still find a way to win this game on their home field. I didn't know they'd play a C minus game or a D plus game in the divisional round here and wind up losing to the Commanders as a result. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, the over. Yeah, over was
wait.
Over was good. Well, it's
I'm getting there.
It's almost like live television. So yeah. Commanders plus 360.
Washington Commanders money line.
There you go.
This is why you listen to this show, people.
You had a good weekend, didn't you?
No? It was okay.
Just where'd you lose it?
Honestly, in my heart of hearts, thought the Eagles were gonna wipe the floor with the Rams, so I took Eagles minus 9.5. I altered them because I got a little greedy. And I like that.
You were feeling yourself. You were feeling yourself, weren't you?
But then the Rams covered every number, so I don't know what I'm doing here.
Well, you knew what you were doing you had the Texans Chiefs first quarter, which you said on the show as well. Oh, look, thumbs up. There we go. Yeah.
That was good. Well, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Listen, Commanders Lions, this game was I don't know. People may not agree with me. I think this was the best football game of the season. Like, I know people are going to say, oh, what about Bills Lions? And Bills Ravens? What are you? I really genuinely, in my heart of hearts, from a football perspective, and I would hope those of you who have watched the show for long enough know that I do, in fact, know one or two things about football here and there. From a football perspective, this was the most fun game. Jaden Daniels is such an amazing talent. I don't know, man. This game had everything in it, right? It felt for a long time like, oh, the Lions have started this comeback. They've got some momentum. It's their home field. Here we go. And then this rookie QB out of LSU would jog out onto the field and shatter their hearts every time. To who's he throwing the ball to? De'Ami Brown? Who? I mean, this is truly an amazing thing to watch in Dan Quinn's first season, and credit from the top down, from ownership, that entire new ownership group with Magic Johnson and the Philadelphia, the 76ers owners.
Yeah.
And then Adam Peters, their new GM, coming in and building a culture in a year. It is truly a remarkable thing to do. I've talked to people around the league. They've told me there are GMs pointing at the Washington Commanders right now saying that is what you need to do when you blow up a franchise. This is going to become a perfect picture for teams like this going forward. It was awesome to see.
Yeah, and like I said last week after they surprised me and won their wild card game, I said, if you bet against them now, you do so at your own peril. Everybody knows what the score is when it comes to this team and what they are capable of. What Dan Campbell said after the game that had a lot of people talking, we'll get to that coming up in just a moment. But first, a word from our friends at Credit Associates. Hey, look, who was the star this weekend? Who would you say was the MVP of this weekend? It was probably Jaden Daniels, maybe Travis Kelce, who had a big weekend too. I mean, they certainly blocked their opponents from being able to make a further run in this postseason. Is debt blocking you right now? Is debt blocking you right now? Are you $10,000 or more in credit card debt? In over your head trying to make monthly payments? There's a powerful debt relief program the credit card companies don't want you to know about. Overcome the debt trap of multiple credit cards, high payments, and high interest rates that keep you in debt for decades with one affordable low monthly payment. It's Credit Associates Debt Relief Program. It's Halfuary, and that debt relief program can help you resolve your debt in as little as 24 to 36 months. What are you waiting for? They could save you thousands of dollars and decades in debt. Trust me on this, you don't want to go through it. Find out how much you could save right now by calling 1-800-747-5362. It's Halfuary. The folks at Credit Associates want to help you. You got $10,000 or more in credit card debt, call 1-800-747-5362 or just click the QR code below. What Dan Campbell said after the game that had a lot of people talking. Take a listen.
It's hard, when you lose these games, man. It's like the players, what they put into it. A lot of people don't know. What they go through. You have to get up. Bodies beat you. Mentally stay locked in and do those things. So, long season.
Oh, hold it together, dude. Hold it together. All right, look, here's what I want to say. Everybody's talked about Dan Campbell changing the culture for the better. The reason they lost is that very culture. Let me explain. The culture in Detroit has been a lot of, remember Riverboat Ron, the Ron Rivera, Riverboat Gambler, Carolina Panthers, oh my God, or Chicago Bears or whatever team he was coaching at the time. Dan Campbell has instilled a culture of aggressiveness, of aggression, of being, I think, sometimes careless when it comes to play calling or decision making around this team. And that's what you see when you watch this team. There's a willingness to do things with the football if you're Jared Goff, who's a great quarterback. But there's, I think, the top-down nature of what they're doing in Detroit is what you saw in that game. The willingness to kind of throw the ball around the yard willy-nilly, not take care of the football in a big game, came back to finally bite him. You can't constantly overcome the number of turnovers this team had. Matt Verderame's coming back. We'll continue the conversation on the NFL in 10 minutes. Matt Verderame from the wonderful world of SI stops by. See what he thinks of the Bills and Chiefs meeting up in the AFC Championship game. Time to talk about a different kind of football, the kind they play at the collegiate level. It's the Natty tonight. National Championship game. Notre Dame and Ohio State meeting up in Atlanta. Bill Bender is there with the Sporting News, who hangs out with us on the show. Does a great job on all things football. All right, I mean, look, we've had plenty of time to sort of marinate in this matchup. Have you convinced yourself or talked yourself into thinking something different than maybe what you thought a week ago?
There's a lot of Notre Dame fans down here in Atlanta, so they're ready for the moment. Is it a build up to another disappointment? Possibly. I was just talking to Pete Nakos with On 3, and he brought up an interesting scenario. If it's 7-3 after the first quarter, yeah, we're going to get a 4-quarter game, and who knows what happens. If it's 14-0, Notre Dame's not coming back from that. So I think this first quarter is going to be telling for both sides. Notre Dame's going to need turnovers. They're going to need to feast on turnovers and hopefully get those turnovers on their half of the field. But I will say this, and I've used this line, Jason. This is the first time Notre Dame, the 2 Alabama games, the Clemson game, I didn't think they had any chance to win. This is the first time I've given them some chance to win on this stage.
You know, I look at it similarly to what you were just talking about in terms of how the game goes, and I'll break it down in terms of how it looks in terms of the odds makers. It's the total's 45.5. If it goes under, Notre Dame's going to be there in the fourth quarter. If it goes over, it's because Ohio State just boat raced them. That's kind of right. I kind of feel the same way about it. Just looking at where the total is set by Vegas, the natural is Notre Dame, and if you're going with Notre Dame, you're taking the under. If you're going with Ohio State, you're taking the over in this game. How does Notre Dame sort of slow down? I think they can lock down. I think they have the capability to lock down some of these Ohio State receivers, but the Buckeyes have so many ways to beat you even if those receivers aren't performing.
Well, we've gotten into this narrative about Notre Dame and playing man coverage and being a man, and well, they'll stick with it. They better not. They better mix it up. If you just play man, you're going to lose. I think they'll mix up their coverages, and Al Golden's being a little smarter than that. They'll pick their spots. That's what he said, and that's the trick. Because you can take Jeremiah Smith out of the game. Texas sure did, but what happened? Carnell Tate had a huge game. Emeka Egbuka had a huge game. It's kind of like you pick your poison a little bit because you're not going to stop all 3 of them, and you got to hope that Will Howard turns the football over a little bit. And if that happens, you get that 4-quarter game. I do like Notre Dame's defense. I like their ability to keep things in front and a bunch of veteran guys. But this secondary will be tested. I am looking forward to seeing how those Notre Dame corners hold up, man or not, against these Ohio State receivers.
What will you be watching for real early in this game to give you any sort of indication?
Notre Dame, can they run the ball? It's that simple. Can they run the ball against a very good Ohio State defense that's nasty up front? Last year when they played, Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love combined, they had 11 carries for 77 yards. And Sam Hartman wasn't a running quarterback. Can Riley Leonard run the ball against this team? Do they get that kind of things to break their way? And I'm not saying like the whole luck of the Irish thing, but they've caught some breaks in these last two games against Georgia and Penn State. I mean, and they're going to need more of those tonight. They cannot afford to turn the football over.
How do you slow down Jack Sawyer?
Oh, I mean, he's just been awesome in the playoffs. And that's another matchup to watch. Notre Dame's offensive line is banged up. Anthony Knapp's not going to play. We don't know if Rocco Spindler's going to play. Injuries at the worst time at the position group where you have to be functional. And then you're going against Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, and Tyleik Williams. It's a really good Ohio State front.
Yeah, it certainly is. Look, the one common opponent these two teams have is Indiana. When you look at how both teams sort of dispatched of Indiana in their varying ways, can people take anything away from that and trying to glean how this matchup goes?
Maybe a little. I think both teams played Indiana similar. I mean, Notre Dame's offense or defense bullied Indiana, much like Ohio State did. The special teams mattered, and Indiana played tough in both of those games, despite the score. So, I mean, not really. The other one we can't really glean much of, and they made a point of saying this. Everybody's saying, well, Notre Dame needs to do what Michigan did. Well, yeah, kind of. That was a month ago. That was 51 days ago. So Ohio State looks a lot different 51 days later after that loss to Michigan. So I think Notre Dame has to be themselves.
It's really cliche for a lot of people to sit there and say, boy, the best thing that could have happened to Ohio State is blah, blah, blah. They lost to Michigan. Is there something to that, though, now that we've seen what's transpired since then?
It was in some ways. Like the way I termed it was the worst thing that could have happened to you happened and you're still alive. And that's what happened. The worst possible thing happened. And think about that in your life or my life. Like I always tell that, like, it's a good lesson for me is like, this is the worst thing that could have happened today. And I'm still here. And that they're playing like that. They're playing like, oh, we still get to play. You can call it redemption, revenge, anger, whatever. I just think they're executing at a high level with a super talented roster. And that's what it comes down to. And I think Ryan Day, for whatever reason, Michigan's in his head, and nobody else is. I mean, there's not another. Georgia wasn't in his head 2 years ago. He went right after one of Kirby's best teams.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like Notre Dame's got to get a score either with special teams or a defensive touchdown. That's the if you want to make an argument, there's going to be, Ohio State's in some regards is going to have to beat themselves here.
Yeah, it's 7 to 10 points off special teams for sure. Yeah. Whether it's field goals, like somebody said to me, like a strip sack that results in a touchdown, those kind of things, and being in the game early.
Yeah,
to see
I
if they can make Ohio State press a little bit, especially as it gets into the fourth quarter. I mean, they'll take a cue from Marcus Freeman. They're going to battle. But if they play like they did in the first half against Penn State, when Penn State had 145 rushing yards, it could be a long night.
All right, give me a prediction. We got about 30 seconds here. Give me a prediction. What do you think happens tonight?
I got 27-17 Ohio State. I do think it's a four-quarter game, and we haven't had many of those in the championship game, but I like the Buckeyes as long as Will Howard is doing what he's been doing, and they've just got too many ways to beat you, and they're healthier, and their defense is nasty, and they have Caleb Downs. There's so many questions for Notre Dame, and Ohio State has the answers. Give me the Bucs by 10.
I'll go 24-20. I think Notre Dame covers. I'll go 24-20 Ohio State. And I like you, think it's going to be a close game late. Bill Bender, enjoy the game in Atlanta. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Coming up in 10 minutes, Patrick McEnroe from Melbourne, Australia. Site of the Australian Open. He'll be on the call with his brother John McEnroe when Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic meet up on Tuesday. We'll preview that coming up. It's worth talking about. But first, we say hello to our friend Matt Verderame. Does a great job. SI, NFL insider there, also host of the Matt Verderame Show over on Patreon. Go and check that out, especially if you love great Chiefs content as well. All right, Matt, look, we're getting Chiefs and Bills in the AFC title game. Well, look, whether it was Chiefs Bills or Chiefs Ravens, I think we can't really ask for much more when you talk about this AFC title game matchup.
I think the game's fascinating. Look, I mean, on one hand, you have a team trying to go for a three-peat, and on the other hand, you got a team desperately trying to break through for the first time. Not only just Josh Allen's era, any era. I mean, obviously, for Allen's first Super Bowl appearance, Bills, of course, have gotten there, but never won it. This game's going to come down to the margins because this game is always tight as hell. They don't blow each other out, ever. Neither team, even in other games, gets blown out almost ever. This is going to be a game that comes down to red zone, third down, turnovers. I mean, that's what this game's going to be. It's fascinating. It's going to be the second game of the day, which means you're going to know who won the NFC game. And I hesitate to say this, but I'm just being honest. I think this game is the Super Bowl because I think whoever wins this game is winning the Super Bowl. I think these are the two best teams, and I think it's going to be a heavyweight fight that goes the distance.
What do you see as the difference between the first time these two teams matched up and sort of what happens in this game?
Well, a lot of guys were missing in that first game for both teams. The Bills didn't have Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid. The Chiefs did not have Jalen Watson, Charles Omenihu, Isaiah Pacheco, Hollywood Brown, Harrison Butker. I also just think, too, there's a little bit of, look, and the Bills didn't have Matt Milano, by the way. Forgot to mention him. Kind of matters. Look, I think it's a totally different football game. It's in Arrowhead. The other one is in Buffalo.
That's
that game
true.
meant a lot. The other game meant a lot more to Buffalo. The Chiefs went undefeated, but I mean, the Chiefs were rolling at that point toward a number one seed. Buffalo is trying to stay at least in the 2-hole. I think the difference in this game is the difference. Look, we have seen the Bills dominate the Chiefs in the regular season, and then the Chiefs dominate the Bills in the playoffs. The burden of proof is on Buffalo in this game. Buffalo's got to beat them. The Chiefs know they can win this game. They've won this game, it feels like 100 times. The Bills have to prove they can win this game. And I think, frankly, if they're going to do it, they got to be plus in the turnover margin. They are number one in the league by 8 in the turnover margin this year. They're plus 24. Nobody else better than plus 16.
Well, it's hard to be plus when Patrick Mahomes doesn't turn the football over. He hadn't turned it over in like 60 days.
Well, so the Chiefs were negative the whole year until that stretch started, and then now they're plus 6. Buffalo's plus 24.
Wow.
If Buffalo can turn the Chiefs over, I think they win the game. If it's even or Kansas City's better, I think Kansas City wins the game.
How do you account for Travis Kelce, was kind of just sort of meandering through the season, and then we talk about playoff Jimmy Butler, it was playoff Travis Kelce.
I think you have to commit 2 guys to him, which is weird because when you look at him physically, like I wrote so I was at the game on Saturday for Sports Illustrated, and my column coming out of it was about Kelce. And I wrote, I don't know that he can outrun a parked bus at this point, but you watch him come off the line and he's like walking, like literally on some places. He's like, it's in a light jog. And then he just gives some guy like a hip shake and he runs an option route and he's open for 12 yards. And he does it all the time. So as weird as this sounds based on his physical capacity, I think you almost have to bracket him. Because if he's one-on-one, he and Mahomes have such a connection, he's just going to get open. He's going to find his way open. When the Bills and the Chiefs played back in November, I believe that looking at the stats, he had 1 catch. Maybe he had 2 for like 10 yards. That will change in this game. They will find ways to get him open. But if the Bills want to take him out, they got to double.
I want to ask you about the Ravens and Lions and what happens next for those teams. But first, a word from our friends at Credit Associates. What a game for Saquon Barkley yesterday. Over 200 yards on the ground, one of the top 5 rushing performances ever in the postseason. What an effort for him. He simply did it all. And just like Saquon Barkley, maybe you can get your credit card debt under control. Nobody can get Saquon under control, but you have a chance to get your credit card debt under control. Has it been blocking your financial freedom? Well, it's time to break through. Credit Associates can help you slam down your debt for up to half of what you owe. If you owe more than $10,000, if you're more than $10,000 in debt, that's the kind of move you want to see in your financial game. Don't wait another quarter. Call 1-800-747-5362 today. See how much you can save. Credit Associates, when it's time to make a play, they got your back. To see if you qualify for debt relief, call 1-800-747-5362. Visit creditassociates.com or just click the link below. What happens next, Matt Verderame, for the Ravens and Lions coming off these disappointments?
I think for the Lions, it's going to be a lot of turnover in the coaching staff. Look, I think you're probably losing both your assistants. Ben Johnson, you're losing unless he just decides to unilaterally reverse course and stay. Aaron Glenn, I think, is a very good bet to get one of these jobs. So I think they're both gone. And I think that is an enormous blow to Detroit. It's an enormous blow to anybody, but those guys are so involved in the way that team plays. That's going to matter. I think for Detroit, it's a devastating loss. I understand the defensive injuries. I get all that. You lost that game if you had 5 turnovers.
How about the Ravens? 30 seconds.
I think the Ravens will come back largely with the same team. But I think if you're Baltimore, you just kind of have to look into the abyss right now and go, when is it going to change? I mean, Lamar, he wasn't terrible, but when you have 2 turnovers like that, you take a bad sack into the red zone, you take a delay game on 3rd and 12, like, you go home. I get Mark Andrews made mistakes, and he deserves a lot of it. But when you make those mistakes as a quarterback, your season ends.
Matt Verderame, SI, the Matt Verderame Show on Patreon. Thank you.
Well,
we continue on this Monday edition of SportsWrap. This man needs no introduction. The great Patrick McEnroe hangs out with us on the show. Does a great job with ESPN. You will hear and see him undoubtedly on what will be the biggest match of the tournament thus far. Carlos Alcaraz, Novak Djokovic meeting in the quarterfinals. Say it isn't so. It feels like it's too early for them to be meeting. Patrick McEnroe, appreciate your time as always. Also the president of the International Tennis Hall of Fame because he has nothing else to do. What's going on, my man?
Thank you, Jason. It's great to be with you. Late night here, early morning for you.
Melbourne, Australia. There we go.
Yeah. We're fired up for this match. And the reason why it's in the quarterfinals, which I agree with you, it shouldn't be in the quarterfinals, but I disagree with you in that the rankings don't lie. And in fact, I had to tell my brother today, because we'll be calling the match tomorrow night, Australia time, which will be the middle of the night back home for you guys. I had to tell him that, he was thinking that the reason Djokovic is ranked so low, because all these tournaments go by the rankings, right, was that he hadn't played that many tournaments. But the truth is not that. He actually played one more tournament in 2024 than Sinner, than Alcaraz. So the reality is he just didn't perform as well. And, unlike golf, the tennis rankings go for every calendar year, not over the course of a couple of years, which I actually think tennis should consider changing it, but that's another story. So anyway, he deserves to be number 7. Was he the 7th favorite to win the title? Absolutely not. But because he's 37 years old and didn't perform as well as he normally does in the majors last year, and the Olympics, by the way, which he won, has no ranking points. So that's why he's seeded 7. Alcaraz, 3 seed, and it's going to be a heck of a matchup. I'm leaning Alcaraz based on what I've seen so far. Djokovic is going to have to step up his game, which he's obviously capable of doing. But here's the bottom line, Jason.
Yes.
Alcaraz is younger. He's stronger. He's faster at this point. His ball has more on it, point in, point out. The X factor for Djokovic is obviously upstairs, the mental part of it, his experience, and also the fact that they're going to be playing at night here, which generally means it's a little bit slower, the conditions. And I think if Djokovic can sort of slow the tempo of the points down, that he has a better chance. Because overall, Djokovic is a little bit more consistent than Alcaraz, but Alcaraz has, right now at this time, way more firepower.
What has Andy Murray meant for Novak Djokovic in this odd couple that we've seen?
Well, I would say so far nothing. And I don't say that disrespectfully to Andy. I think Andy, because this is when the tournament starts for Djokovic. When he's got Alcaraz, if he happens to upset Alcaraz and win, it's either Zverev or Tommy Paul. Zverev's the 2 seed, then likely Sinner in the final. So this is the start. He's had some good wins over some quality players, but guys that you expect him to beat. And And I think that the reason Djokovic brought Andy Murray in is for this particular match, for this kind of moment. Are there any different wrinkles that he'll bring to the table? Is there something he's been keeping in his back pocket? Will he play a little bit more aggressively? I think he's going to have to do something a little bit different than what we've seen so far in the tournament to have a chance to hang with Alcaraz over best of 5.
If they're both playing their A game at this stage of their career on, Tuesday, January 21st, when this match takes place, Alcaraz wins, right?
Absolutely. I think he wins pretty comfortably, in 3 sets, maybe 4 sets. But if they're both at the absolute top of their game, certainly based on what I've seen thus far this year in the tournament, and then you look at the majors last year. They played the Wimbledon final last year. I know Djokovic wasn't quite 100% because of the knee injury, but he did get to the final. I mean, if it wasn't totally close to 100%, he wouldn't have gotten to the final. He gets to the final, and he got manhandled. Now, at the Olympic Games, best 2 out of 3, so I think that was an edge to Djokovic. The balls were flying there. The conditions were actually pretty fast, even though it was clay. And Djokovic, I think everything came together for him to win that. And I believe that everything's going to have to come together and then some, because I think Alcaraz is going to be more focused, more ready. His speed is phenomenal. He's worked on his serve, Jason, in the short off season that the tennis players have. So he's serving consistently bigger right now. So if they play their A game, it's a relatively routine Alcaraz win.
Holger Rune and Jannik Sinner squared off. Sinner gets the win there in, 4 sets, I believe. So he continues to roll. And how about Ben Shelton?
Well, he finds himself in the quarters, Jason, with an unbelievable draw, taking on Sonego, the Italian veteran, it's shocking. He's never made it this far in a major. He beat one of the young Americans that both lost in the round of 16, both 2 kids from Southern Cal, Lerner Tien, who was the kid who upset Medvedev. I love his game, lefty, a lot of variety, but he ran out of gas today. Then tonight, I just got finished doing the match with Di Minor, the top Aussie, took out Alex Mickelson in a straight set. Sinner is a huge favorite to get to the final. Sinner was actually sick this morning, Jason, before his match. And he didn't warm up. He didn't prepare. He looked ashen through the first couple of sets, and actually was brutally hot today. But he managed to get through it and beat Rune, who is playing well, but not at the level that we thought he would be at a couple of years ago. So it's going to be Sinner. Look, Sinner's going to be in the final. He's still the favorite to win this thing. But this is a great opportunity for Shelton to get back into the mix and get back into a major semi.
Patrick McEnroe from the Australian Open. Watch him on ESPN with his brother as well on this amazing Novak Djokovic match that we're going to have with Carlos Alcaraz on Tuesday. Appreciate you, my friend, always.
Always enjoy it, Jason. All the best.
All right, it's just about time to put the wraps on this baby. But before we do, some reminders. SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast is available right now. Go and check it out. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Amazon, Odyssey. You name it, we're on all of them. There's no excuse. If you're into podcasts and you like to consume this show that way, you are welcome to do so. It is commercial free in that form. So make sure to go and check that out. Let's see. Look, Sam's even showing it off. There it is. Look at all those episodes. It's doing pretty well over on YouTube, by the way. I went and checked it out the other day. The YouTubers love it.
You can watch.
What were you saying? Sorry,
no
Sam.
Clue.
What'd you say? Sorry.
I had no clue about this until I guess we started putting the show on Spotify. But you can watch things, including SportsWrap with Jason Page, on Spotify.
Yes.
Watch the show, not just listen to it. Watch it. Not that looking at Jason's face is pleasant, but hey, you could see me.
It's true. It's kind of like this sweater. It's kind of that mustardy thing I got going on today. It's true. Down 6 pounds, by the way, on my almost 7 pounds on my Ozempic quest. By the way, just wanted
no free ads. Come on,
just wanted to point that out. Hey, man, they deserve it. If they help me lose weight, they deserve it. All right, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends Roki Sasaki is going to the Dodgers. Surprise, surprise. The Dodgers just keep loading up. And they add Tanner Scott on top of that. Nice weekend if you're a Dodgers fan.
Yeah, so the Roki Sasaki thing, obviously, we can't add to the fire of, this is the Dodgers more just spending money than anybody else because he was going to make the same amount of money no matter where he went. Yeah. The Tanner Scott thing, you can. They're just throwing money at the wall at this point because they've got more than everybody else and they've got it figured out. Listen, this is bad for baseball. It has gotten to that point. And I was talking to somebody, I reached out to somebody in baseball very, very shortly after the Tanner Scott signing happened and said, what does this mean for the sport? Because I'm starting to get worried. And he said, lockout definitely coming in 2026. So wow. December 1st, 2026 is when the collective bargaining agreement ends. And I guess the thought is that the owners are going to slap something down on the table that's got both that's got a salary cap on it, and then the Players Association is going to come back with a salary floor. We are headed straight for a lockout, full
baseball
speed ahead
Armageddon.
Right now in 2026. You're right. Yeah. Enjoy baseball for the next 2 years because seriously, I think it might be in jeopardy after 2026.
Scare-a-vision with Sam Yarnell on the show today, trying to scare all you baseball fans. We'll have David Ardsma on this week because Paul Skeens made some interesting comments. It was a nightmare, a bleep show at the Pirates Fan Fest that I want to talk to him about that. We'll have David Ardsma on this week to talk some baseball for sure. But it's Tanner Scott, Sasaki, both to the Dodgers. Hey, before we get to the odds of odds and ends, got to talk about my friends over at Edge Boost. I am always looking for ways to take my sports betting to the next level. And that's exactly why I'm pumped to tell you about Edge Boost. It's the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. It's doing that. Edge Boost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit. With the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. That's free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edge Boost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit. I don't know if that's enough for Sam Yarnell. It's certainly enough for me. It'll never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. So stop leaving money on the table. Go and visit edgeboost.bet. Better yet, just click the QR code right there. That QR code will get you everything you need to do and sign up today. That is edgeboost.bet. Again, just click the QR code below. All right, Sam, the Natty, who you got?
Ohio State by a zillion. I frankly don't think it's going to be close. My card
such a
includes
Debbie Downer. You're
Jason
such a
Page.
Debbie Downer, man.
Oh yeah, 100%.
By the way, I told you last week on this show that the money would flip. And has it. Now it's 58% of the money on the spread on Ohio State, and 55% of the bets are on Ohio State. Last week it was the other way around. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I truly do think that this Ohio State team is levels better than this Notre Dame team. I'm going to go Ohio State. I'll lay the 8.5. If you want to alt that up in my mind, I don't mind anything short of 14. Go to 13.5 if you want. I would also go Notre Dame team total under. Right now we're getting 17.5 with some juice. I would bet that under while you can, while you're above that key number of 17, because 16.5 I frankly do not like as much. And then there is a special out there that they're hanging, Jason, and you know me in specials. Travion Henderson, 25 plus rushing yards in each half. Just over plus 160. I like that. That's where I'm going to lay my money down tonight.
Call me a sentimental fool. Yeah, I know.
Here it comes.
Call me a sentimental fool. I'm taking Notre Dame plus the 8.5. I don't think they're going to win, but I do think it's going to be close. And I said this to Bill Bender earlier in the show, I think there's two ways to go with this. If you think Ohio State's going to blow them out, you take the over. If you think Notre Dame's going to keep it close, you're taking the under. It's very simple. There's to me that they are very like a wine and a cheese. They pair well together. So give me Notre Dame plus the 8.5. Give me the under 45.5. We'll see you at the window. Sam Yarnell, that wraps it up for us. Enjoy the game tonight, my friend.
Hopefully we get a good one.
Thanks to Bill Bender, Patrick McEnroe, everybody else. We'll see you later.